Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be joined by Millie Manders, who releases her new album, Wake Up, Shutup, Work, on August the 2nd. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whatever you're watching or listening. Welcome back to the Pelt Music Podcast, the brilliant Millie Manders. Absolutely delighted to have you on today. It's actually quite a warm day as well, actually, as we speak, which is quite nice because we haven't had too many of them.
Currently 22 degrees and a little bit windy, but tropical wind is happening outside my window. I love it and nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely delighted. It's a great time to get to talk to you because obviously you've got your second album coming up shortly, which we are going to delve almost right into. But as we're talking about the weather, I'm reminded, obviously, we are in festival season, and I've been getting out and about at a few festivals, and it's been fantastic. And I see that you've been doing obviously the same, getting out there and playing your new songs to audiences at these festivals. So how has your summer been so far, Millie?
To be honest, this has been the quietest summer for us in 4 or 5 years, other than COVID, obviously. But actually, even that was busy because I was trying to release an album then anyway. But festivals wise, yeah, it's been quite quiet. The ones we have played have been really, really fun and we've had a lot of fun with it. But it's also been a blessing because it's given me time to concentrate on the album cycle and making sure that everything's ready and all the ducks are in a row, you know, for people to get their pre-orders in time and that the merchandise is there and available when it gets released next week. So yeah.
Yeah, no, as you say, next week it is exciting. And also, as you say, you know, when we talked before, we were talking about the pandemic, and I try not to talk about it too much on the podcast anymore because, you know, it's depressing. But yeah, that first album, yeah, you had to navigate the pitfalls of a pandemic and get that out there. Whereas this time, as you say, you actually have a bit of time to prep. So, I mean, you must be really excited for the album anyway, but I suppose it must have that added bonus this time around of not having to contend with that.
Actually, I would say it's the other way around. Because during the pandemic, there was literally I couldn't play any shows, so all of my time could be spent on concentrating on merchandise and marketing and artwork and just making sure that every tiny little detail that I wanted to be there for the release of the album and the singles, I could literally just release singles and concentrate on the reception of the single every time, rather than worrying about also touring and also doing this and also doing that. So this time there's this balance of, since we started writing the album at the beginning of last year, we've had to contend with finding time to write the album and finding time to record the album and finding time to get the artwork done and resources and finding people to be on the album, mix it, master it, and all the rest of it, while also heavily touring up until this summer when we had a little bit of a break in the touring schedule for me to be able to concentrate on the finite little bits and bobs. But I've still been touring, so I've still had to concentrate on, you know, marketing all of those shows and getting my voice ready and looking at set lists and rehearsing the new songs to put some of those in there. Music videos have had to be recorded and released. So actually it's felt way more stressful this time, not to mention the fact that we've tried to go even bigger on this album on what we're trying to do in terms of the marketing strategy and the artwork and the videos and who we want to push it out to and all of that kind of thing, the charities that we've been raising money for. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, and it's been a real learning curve. We're now using sort of direct to customer, what are they called, distributors, two different distributors as well. So I'm kind of communicating with a bigger team this time around. So yeah, exciting, but also just a lot, and learning all about all of these different parts of the industry that I never even had to think about before. And suddenly I'm like, oh, I need to do that. Okay, can you tell me how?
Oh, yeah, that sounds utterly intense, but a really good intense, obviously, you know, because you get into put this album out into the world and obviously learn new things as well, as you say, actually. It's always interesting to speak to us because there is so many different facets of the industry. And obviously, you know, when you are independent and you have to do a lot of that yourself. Is learning new kind of life skills as well, I guess, is just quite a nice little side part to it.
Oh, for sure. It's really exciting that because I've always said, when you're a DIY artist, you're your own record label. So at this point, I'm now learning the distribution side of it, which is, I mean, I didn't even know what a SKU was before I had to go and learn about how to create and buy legal barcodes and have SKUs for my products in order for our distributor for the products that are on our website to then get them out to our fans and followers. And even this morning, I'm still discussing with them, like, how do I do this bit? Help, it's only a week away. Are they going to be on time? And they're like, yes, we're going to get them out on time. You just need to do X, Y, Z. Here's a little tutorial video, and then on the other side of it, the other distributor that's doing the independent record stores and getting it out into all of those places and Amazon, um, and all of those kind of things, and how that distribution works. And I'd never even used UPS or FedEx before, but suddenly I'm having to learn how to navigate 17 boxes of stock to one place and 6 boxes of stock to another place, and I'm measuring boxes and I've got massive scales and I'm weighing these boxes, and I'm like, who knew this was part of the record industry? Who knew this was how you get albums out to people if you're not going to the post office yourself? I didn't. So yeah, but fun.
Yeah, no, fascinating. It really, really is. Yeah, always excited to get a sort of glimpse behind the effort that artists such as yourself do put in to making everything work. And thank God you do, obviously, because the outcome is your music, and anyone that's listened to your music will be grateful that you do it, because it's so just enjoyable, but relevant, and just a load of superlatives I could chuck out, but I'll save those for the album review that we're going to get out this week, which obviously hopefully listeners will be able to check out. So the album is called Wake Up, Shut Up, Work, and is out on August the 2nd, which will be about a week after this comes out, so there's still time for listeners to pre-order if you can, which is always really helpful. And I would certainly push them in the direction of the splatter vinyl, which looks just a thing of beauty. I love vinyl, and that looks amazing.
It is beautiful. And you know what? I'm going to just very quickly have a look and see if I can tell you how many are left, because I am pretty sure we've got less than 30 at this point of the 300. So if anybody does want one of those splatter vinyls, now is the time to look.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, no, listeners, you've got that warning message. Definitely, go and have a look and do that. And there will be links in the bio of this episode for you to click through to make it hopefully a little bit easier for you to do so. Now, Wake Up, Shut Up, Work. Really, I was sat here just before this interview and I thought that really sums up my day today, to be honest, because that's pretty much how it went in that order. What does the album title mean to you, though, Millie?
I think it's multifaceted for me. So obviously the first album was called Telling Truth, Breaking Ties, and that kind of alluded to the idea that by talking about things that are uncomfortable, you're probably going to lose people along the way. And it was about not being afraid of that. And this title is a move on, but also keeping true to that. Because I'm still talking about things that are really uncomfortable and losing a few people along the way, and I'm still not afraid of that. But it's also that certainly as a woman, we're often told to be seen and not heard still. That if we are forward in our messaging, we can be accused of being overly angry or obnoxious, or lots of different rhetoric for being a woman who has a open and strong opinion about things in the world. And it's also a societal structure where we are living in a capitalist neoliberalist society which favors the rich over the poor, And we are in a rat race where we are constantly told to wake up, shut up, and go to work, no matter how many hours that is, no matter whether or not we are able to meet our needs. You know, and there's huge problems with that. We all know it. So multifaceted in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, it sadly really does fit, doesn't it? Because unfortunately, we wish a lot of those issues weren't there, and but they are, and we are going to get into the fact that you're willing to talk about these sort of things, which a lot of artists aren't. But I'm gonna before we get on to that, just close out around the album first, and obviously. It's your second album. We talked about the difference between the pandemic release and obviously, releasing outside of the pandemic. But that recording process itself, I noted from the press release that obviously you discuss it as being a more collaborative process this time round, obviously with the members of the Shutup, the rest of the band. How was that for you to navigate? How did you feel the experience went this time, especially compared obviously to last time?
It was less stressful in that everybody had more responsibility, and everyone had to take on that responsibility. We were all in the rooms together. We all had to create together. So I wasn't constantly chasing people for their parts. I didn't feel so much pressure to be writing complete songs either by myself or just with one other person in order to then pass them on to people to create parts and then chase them for that. And then the other side of that is it's really quite scary because I was in a situation where for the first time in my life, I was relinquishing that responsibility, that creativity, and saying, hey, go wild, do what you want with this. And I'm like, So there's actually only 2 tracks on the album that I basically wrote the meat and bones of. One that got away is an album version of a song that I wrote in 2017, 2018, but we thought it worthy of having a reprise because it wasn't on an album. And Rebound, I wrote that and then guided the process of what I wanted to hear with that, with the band back in February of last year. But apart from that, every other song was written in a collaborative it was in 3 weeks, 3 separate weeks in Airbnbs, where we were literally like in rooms together, bringing ideas and working through them and writing songs like a little song factory, Shutup factory. So yeah, it was both awesome and scary, but ultimately rewarding, and all of us are really proud of what we've got as a result.
As you should be, absolutely, because I've had a sneak peek of it. So there is an album review that will be coming out on the website, listeners. And speaking of collaboration, welcome, Matty. I believe you said to the podcast. I'm assuming contributions from said cat were probably quite minimal to the album. I'm not sure.
No, she more contributes to itchy eyes than anything. With her long hair, I call her the puff of fluff because she permeates my soul with her hair. And I'm literally batting it away right now. But she walks past, and there is just
Yeah.
fluff everywhere. But she's my lockdown baby and
Oh.
my little savior, my mental health savior. So yeah, she comes and chirrups occasionally. It doesn't matter who I'm chatting to. So I do apologize, but I also don't apologize because she's
No.
nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a pet lover. Got a dog and a cat and many other things myself. So I mean, I know the pain of the hair everywhere. But yeah, no, I mean, and contributions to the album were probably great moral support throughout that process. I'm sure, especially as you say, it is interesting to me, that release of control, or sharing of responsibility, and how. I love that you use the word, fear, because I can echo that in certain things that I have sort of have done and created and obviously shared some responsibility for. And yeah, it is. There is that sort of fear that comes with it. So it's great to hear it from you that it's not just me.
I don't think any of us had a lack of it, and we all had our own frustrations with it, because every single one of us are very different people in terms of what we like musically and sonically, the type of sounds that we like with our own instruments. And And so there were a lot of times, either writing or in the studio, where it had to be a vote system, and the majority had to win because we'd come to a loggerhead on a particular part of a song or a particular sonic preference. And we're all creative people are strong-willed. We're all very much attached emotively to what we create. And so if somebody's turning around and saying, well, you can't do that in that part of the song because it affects this part of the song, someone's going to get butthurt.
Yeah.
And there was also like, there were parts of it where I was like, I really don't like this, really don't like it. But I had to sit there with myself and go, okay, but it's no longer just your choice. Like, these people have all created these things with you and you have to let this go. And so there were lots of times where I had to just sit and go, okay, carry on.
Yeah, which is yeah, can be tough, But then equally, the flip side of that is the beauty that comes from having a diverse range of influences and thoughts and that go into that, because that's what makes society great, is the fact that everyone's different. If everyone was the same, especially in music, it'd all be a bit boring, wouldn't it? Let's face it. So.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, I have an album that all four of us are very proud of. When it comes out next week, we're super excited for it, and we just hope that everybody else loves it as much as we've loved the process and what we've created.
Yeah, which I think is great to hear, because that's what being in music, in the industry should be about. It should be about enjoying what you do, whether that's the recording of an album, playing it live when you get out there, posting it yourself, or learning new ways of getting it out there. You should be able to, at the end of the day, just go, yeah, I'm glad I did that. I enjoyed that. And unfortunately, I do meet artists out there that just don't enjoy, what they're doing, even though they want to. And it's, it's one of the sort of
I think that's
negatives.
really sad.
Yeah,
And
it is.
I would say to anybody that's not enjoying their art anymore, stop.
Yeah.
I've quit every single job that I have not liked. Any time that I've been in a job where I've started to dislike it, I quit. And it would be absolutely the same with my music. If music started to become unenjoyable for me and I was getting on the road or going in the studio going, I hate doing this now, I'd quit. I would find another career. I would find another way of making money. I would do something else. Like, life is so short. And as I've already said, we are in such a rat race that if we can find even the smallest amount of joy in what we do to put food on our plate, we should do it.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. Yeah, sometimes you've got to take those brave decisions and do what, sometimes might make you feel uncomfortable, but it's got to be done. And kind of a loose segue into the next question, in the sense of getting off things, because I want to ask you about "Can I Get Off," the sort of latest single from the album, and just we talked earlier, and I said I was going to ask about your willingness to talk about. I think what in the lyric in the song perhaps says, is uncomfortable for people to hear sometimes, even though it really shouldn't be, and there's a range of subjects, in all fairness, that you've been willing to call out and speak out about, ranging from obviously the more recently the genocide in obviously Gaza, and there's the I know animals, love of animals is a passion for you, and obviously fox hunting, you've spoken out against that. So and there's I could sit here and list a range of topics that you've been willing to talk about, and it's so refreshing to me, because when I started this podcast, I found myself critiquing quite a lot that politics was taboo, within music, because as you say in the song, bands are afraid of losing their followers. Oh, I don't want to say something that's going to alienate part of that audience, because I'm going to lose some followers there, and that's going to damage my career. And therefore, even though I've got this great platform and ability to start conversations that are important, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wake up, shut up, and just work, I guess, and just put out my music and not use that platform. And one of the lines I love from the song is the calling out of Tories, which became really pertinent to me. I've just been at 2,000 Trees, and an awful lot of bands there. And I was asking myself this beforehand, because obviously we just have had a change of government in the UK, and all of these bands for the last sort of 3 or 4 years have taken that obvious opportunity to, say, stop the Tories, or get the Tories out and blah blah blah. What are you going to do now they're out? What's going to be your little call that you're gonna say that isn't going to impact your career too much to say it, but is going to make you look a little bit edgy, because you can't say that now, can you? So yeah, it was quite interesting to hear some of the bands that would usually say that, and see how they kind of navigated around it. But also there's some fantastic bands that got straight to the point as well. So certainly, Millie, you're not, thankfully these days, definitely not the only person that's willing to speak out. But there's a lot more. But I do give obviously big credit to you, because it is, as silly as it sounds, it is brave, because there is the potential that you're going to damage your ability to earn money, your ability to live, because you're going to call out obvious atrocities that should be called out and shouldn't be accepted. And it's ridiculous that this is a topic of conversation, because it just should be just natural that all of us are willing to call out these things that are going on that are just absolutely atrocious. But people say it's too easy to get. So point I'm trying to make, first of all, is just thank you for being someone that's willing to speak out on behalf of people that can't speak out themselves. You've got a platform, and you do so, and it is absolutely fantastic. And obviously, that song in particular, I've probably spoiled my own question here and given away a lot of the meaning to it. But what for people that haven't had a chance to check out that song, perhaps, what's that? What about that song? What does it mean to you? What does it stand for?
Um, so the first and foremost, you're right. It came from a place of understanding more about why what's happening in Palestine is happening, and the persecution of Palestinians. But that led me down a rabbit hole of understanding my own white privilege and where that comes from, and in turn my own internalized racism. And so I've been reading books on that and the history of white supremacy and capitalism and colonialism, which led me down the path of understanding more about Congo and the reaping of the mineral resources in Congo, right the way back to rubber in, I think I want to say the 1600s, but it might have even been earlier than that. And out in Africa, people's hands were cut off and things out there if they weren't doing what they were told to do. And rubber was the first thing, and then it was tin and aluminium, and now it's cobalt, and cobalt is for Tesla and all your electric cars and our mobile phones and tablets and laptops. So I committed myself immediately to never buying new tech again. So my phone is secondhand. The tablet I've just got because we need it for sales at our merch desks is secondhand. And just understanding the atrocities there. Millions of people are displaced. Millions of people have been murdered for these resources. Like millions on millions have been murdered. 4-year-olds are in mines in Congo, dying because the infrastructure of the mines just isn't there. They're just holes in the dirt, so they're being buried alive. And then you've got Sudan, where various militia groups are using not just rape, but gang rape as a weapon of war in front of family members and husbands, who are then cut up. And there was one woman who was, and I'm sorry for this graphic description, but some of these things are just, I went down a rabbit hole of understanding what we have done, the invasions that we have caused, that we have backed, that we continue to back for gas and oil and gold. And, Africa is the largest resource for diamonds and gold and rubies and other precious gems. So our jewelry, the new jewelry that is sitting in the stores, there's a reason it's called blood diamonds. It's because these people are being persecuted for those resources. So this song for me is deeply ingrained in my learning for myself to be better, to understand better. And then just as a societal thing, all of these little things that we do that are actually minor aggressions towards Black and Indigenous people of colour. And to understand that better is a difficult journey, and it's painful, but I think it's so important for all of us to start doing that and really unlearning what we've been taught is history and relearning what is actual history, and just how many genocides there have been in other countries. I think there was one that I heard recently about Germany killing something like 6 million people in Nigeria. Like, it's just wave upon wave of Western white colonialism against other countries, and it's always for their resources, always for their resources, and it's always demonizing them as people in order to gain those resources. Oh, savages. Oh, mud huts. All of these things that I remember as a child being tropes that I had rolled out to me just as a norm, and I obviously, as a child, you believe them. None of it was true. Incredible, much more advanced civilizations, and also civilized people who were generous and kind and community based, which is what most of us strive for here, but we're rocked by capitalism and stopped from having it. And yeah, when you said about the boys in bands, of course, I'm so angry that all of the people that I know that are in political bands know what's happening, but largely stay silent because they've probably got some right-wing followers who won't be happy about it. I've been threatened with violence. I've lost a German booking agent for standing up for Palestine. So I have lost money. I have lost followers. And I don't care. And I just feel like that's how everybody should be. There should be less care of what we're losing, because that shows that, I mean, that's the epitome of white privilege to me. Is to hold on to these things that actually matter so little when other people have so little, if anything, and are being persecuted just for being the people that they are in the country that they live in. So yeah, sorry to go on a little rant there, but that song is incredibly important to me. And I feel I wouldn't say that my song is incredibly important, because that would be the height of arrogance. It's incredibly important for me to talk about those things, and I would like to see more people talking about it, be it through their art or on their stages, because I call the F the Tories thing a vanilla trope. As far as I'm concerned, it's speaking to your echo chamber, it's meaningless, it's safe, and I'm sure it'll turn into F the reform instead. Like, that's where it's going to go. It'll be reform instead, because Tories are relatively out, but reform are very much on the rise. Yeah, stop being so wet.
Yeah, no, you're dead right on that. I said I was wondering where they're going to go. You are dead right. It will be reform they'll target next, won't they? Another safe option for them to call out.
Before we move on, I would like to say, though, that there are bands that I see regularly. People like Menstrual Cramps, who created Bands Boycott Barclays, and Lambrini Girls are really, really vocal and out there about it. Bob Vylan wave Palestinian flags and talk about it every time they go on stage. I know that I'm not alone, and I would not be so arrogant and brash as to assume that I am. All I do is do what I can because I believe that I should. I don't think there's anything special in that, or that I should be having a pat on the back or anything else. I have blessedly had people in my inbox saying that it has made them braver to speak out themselves. And that for me is the most important thing. If I can change one person's mind, or get one more person to share something and talk about it, or go to a protest, or set up a fundraiser, or donate, or whatever, then that's the important thing to me, is spreading that message and getting more and more people to look internally and then speak out vocally.
Yeah, 3 great examples of fellow bands and artists, that are out there having that conversation. And as you say, I mean, and there's going to be something really ironic that I'm now about to say, which will become obvious to you when we get about 2 more questions down. But there is no, there's no magic wand, and none of you are saying that there's a magic wand and you can, wave this and everything's going to be okay. What it is about is it's about starting these conversations for people that haven't, been open to, the realities there is. Because as you say, history is written by the victors. What we're taught in school isn't necessarily a true reflection of what has gone on, and you've got to be willing to. I think you called it a difficult journey, and you've got to go on that difficult journey because it is going to call out a lot of what you know to be true, or a lot of what you've believed in, or what you've done yourself in the past. It's going to call that out, and you're going to have to sort of reconcile with yourself and go, you know what, I was wrong on that. I didn't realize the realities of what I was talking about. And we can all educate ourselves a hell of a lot more. And I think the great thing that artists such as yourself and Bob Villain and Ambrini Girls and Menstrual Cramps, and there was quite a lot of great bands at Trees that were opening up this conversation last week, which was I say, it's great that we can have this conversation, because I found it very difficult, as I said at the start, when I started this podcast, bands not wanting to have conversations that, I don't want to say this on your podcast because that could come back and bite me. Being able to just have this conversation with yourself was just so refreshing, because there's no fear of I mean, I've barely got any listeners as it is, so if any of them do go, then I'm not going to be too worried. But it's just nice to be able to acknowledge this and have a sort of frank sort of conversation about it. And hopefully, by doing so, again, I just think if one person listening to this podcast, is able to go, yeah, they do make some points there. Maybe I do need to go and just educate myself a little bit before I weigh into these sort of political debates that actually, I don't know as much about as perhaps I could. So yeah, no, absolutely fantastic to be able to do that. And I say we will jump in a moment to the reason why that was so ironic. But before then, I just want to finish off the sort of traditional conversation of the podcast by just obviously making everyone aware that they can come and see you do what you do best and play live. You've got a UK tour coming up in October, November. Again, there'll be a link in the bio that will take listeners away, and they can find a date hopefully close to them and come and obviously see you live. And I always think that you just look like you're living your best life and having a whale of a time when you're on stage, and that just helps create that atmosphere where the fans then give a little bit more. And a Millie Manders show is something truly special, so I bet you're really looking forward to obviously getting out and playing these shows.
Yes, and we are planning on hopefully making it even more cool. Like we've got some good ideas for how to make it even more of a party, and hopefully those will come to fruition. So yeah, come along. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, if I had to pick one word to describe a Millie Manders show, it would be fun. That is the key word that I think you need to put on all the posters for sure. So yeah, listeners, I always like to give a little plug because that's why we're here. The album Wake Up, Shut Up and Work is out August 2nd. The tour obviously follows in October, November. Best way to stay up to date with Millie is social media. I always give out the social handles at this point. And yours are pretty easy for me to read, because sometimes I have about 4 or 5 different ones with underscores and all kinds of things in there. TikTok, Instagram, and X is just simply Millie Manders. Hopefully listeners would find you without my help. And on Facebook, it's Millie Manders Music. Again, pretty simple. So listeners, head over there, give Millie a follow so you can stay up to date with everything that is going on in the world of Millie. Now, I said there was a bit of irony in when I said there's no magic wand that we can wave and fix everything. The reason for the irony is because the last segment of this podcast that has been brought in since we last spoke, so we didn't get to do it when we spoke last time, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were one of the artists that prompted me to bring this in, because I always talk about this by saying, that on the podcast I found myself talking with a lot of artists about issues within the music industry, and for that reason I brought in a segment just to make sure that we are raising awareness and putting some things out there that listeners might not be aware of. And I've called it Magic Wand, which is why I say the wand was so ironic, because for a moment we are going to step into Fantasyland, and sadly it is just Fantasyland. But I'm going to give you a magic wand, Millie. And I always say to the guests, with that magic wand, you can change one thing, but one thing only. And that's where it becomes really difficult. And I imagine it will be particularly difficult for you to pick. But with your magic wand, what one thing about the music industry would you like to change? Yeah, it's a tough one.
What would I change about the music industry? See, I find it very difficult to answer that question because for me, I've never looked at the music industry at any point and gone, oh no, this is awful. I think it just is what it is. There's nothing that is going to change the fact that Spotify and Apple Music and Google they are the main way that people consume music, but those things lead people to go and watch your live show or buy merchandise and physical records now. That's the way it goes. They listen to you first and then they go and do the thing. Whereas it used to be people would go to a live show and be encouraged by the marketing that was created by £1 million record deals. You know, I think if you can't just accept that that's the way that it is for now, then you're only ever going to be battling your own bitterness and resentment towards something that just is. It's not perfect. I think if I could change anything about what it is, I would change the money that is being funneled from those places back into the pockets of the billionaires, and in some cases that are funding AI weapons that are currently being used in Gaza. And that for me is the wand that I would wave. I think it wouldn't change anything about the industry. It would change the powers that people have at the top for the money spending. Because largely the money distribution should be better in society. And therefore in the music industry. So I think my magic wand would stop money from being able to be funneled back into genocides from the music that we create, because we are unable to stop that unless we take our music off of these platforms. And as small artists, we are bound to those things because we don't have any other way of getting our music out there, because there is no golden industry anymore. So there you go. A complex answer, but the best one that I can give.
A really, really good answer. Really powerful answer. So no, thank you for that. That's great answer to that question for sure. So it's a difficult question because there is so much wrong when you pigeonhole it into the industry, but obviously, societally and with the world, as we've sort of touched on throughout this podcast, there's a lot that needs to change. And again, all we can do at our level is just have those conversations and get people to go out there and take action, as however small that action is. I mean, you gave a great example earlier of, I'm not going to buy any new tech. I'm just gonna, I know that my life, sadly, in 2024, all of our lives rely on tech. But what I can do is just make sure I'm not, making that situation worse. I can just buy used tech, and it's a small change, but it will make a difference. And if everyone did that, things would change quicker, wouldn't they? So no, absolutely loved our chat, as I knew that I would. And listeners, obviously, wake up, shut up, work is the main sort of point we're gonna push at the end here on my part anyway. August 2nd, definitely get onto it, check it out, be it on Spotify, or preferably buy that splatter vinyl or the other vinyl variants that are available, and get a nice physical copy, because that's always the best thing to do. So that is my final message, but I always give the final message over to the guests. What would be your final message for the listeners today?
Again, that's like the magic wand. What would be my final my final message would be, while there are many dark things going on in the world, we can all find joy, and we can all find our place in it, and we can all do things that make things better. And if you can find one thing to do today that makes things better for other people, then, my friend, you are having a win.
A beautiful final message. And all that's left is me to thank you so much, Millie, for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Millie. Do make sure you check out the new album from Millie Manders and the Shutup on August the 2nd. And of course, follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whatever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.